Hey guys, Adam Rose, Vice President and Senior Loan Officer of Western Ohio Mortgage here in Sydney, Ohio. Today is another episode of the Mortgage Guy Podcast, and today we're going to talk about probably the most overlooked document in your transaction, of which you get up front, the Residential Property Disclosure Form. This little form here, just a 6-page document, okay? So when you're out looking at homes, this document should be online. Your real estate agent should be able to provide it for you even before you look at the home. But you definitely need to take a peek at this thing if you make an offer on said home. So what is it? And everybody in this transaction gets it except for the title company, I think. So listing agent, seller, buyer's agent, buyer, lender, appraiser gets it. All right. So what's in here? And hopefully the seller's honest, right? Because we had to rely on their word. But it's a 6-page document where they're filling out information about the property while they have lived there, for as long as they have lived there. Any issues with the home that they're aware of, leaky roof in the past, we have an issue with the septic, we've got, I don't know, you name it, leaks under the sink. It's all going to be listed in this document, and it's a full disclosure of what's happening with the property. So a lot of people just don't look at it. And you know why? I think a big reason is everything's done electronically nowadays, and that's great. It makes everybody's life a lot easier, but I think they overlook it and they just don't pay attention to it. And that's some keyword here, all right? Some real estate agents don't look at it either, all right? Some are amazing and they address it up front. But let me just give you a quick example. It can tell you a lot, right? You may not even want to look at the property if you find some of the information in here. So what all is in here? You can find out if it's an HOA that you weren't aware of, right? So that's an additional expense to the buyer, and maybe you have no interest in an HOA. Maybe you do. Maybe that's what you're looking for. Talks about if there's going to be flood insurance needed, right? Because, we got to do flood insurance certifications to see if you are or are not in a flood zone. And sometimes your real estate agent may not know the situation. Sometimes the seller doesn't have a mortgage on the house, so they're not required to carry flood insurance if they don't have a mortgage. So they don't. And that's why they say they don't have flood insurance. So there's a lot of stuff that's going on in there that can really keep you informed about the property that you're looking at, okay? So it can tell you a lot. So let's just talk about the first 2 pages, really. One of the first couple things that pop out at you, especially if you're doing government lending, the water source, okay? Are you on public water, right? City water, city sewage, or are you on a well? Well, depending on your loan program, if you're on a well, you might have to get a water test. So heads up there. That can tip you off on what's going on. If there's any issues with the well in the past, has it been tested? When was it tested? That can tell you a lot. The septic, right? City water, city sewage, yes or no? Or is it on a septic? Maybe you want to look into getting a septic inspection. When was the last time was it used? Do the sellers live there, right? Has it not been used at all in the last 6 months, 12 months, what have you? A lot of that stuff can play a role on the type of offer that you're going to make on this home and maybe some potential requests that you might make. Are there any foundation issues in the past? Have they been remedied? One of the most popular and common things that I've seen is they'll fill out that they've had a roof leak in the past. Well, that's all fine, right? They check mark, yes, we've had a roof leak. We want to see, did they address it? And how did they address it, right? They might say, yep, back in 2018, had a massive roof leak, and we replaced the roof in, 6 months later, 2 months later, whatever it is. And if that's already been addressed and they state that it's been repaired and how repaired, us as a lender, we don't care. That's great. As long as you, the buyer, are comfortable with it, we can move on with our day. So that brings me to my next point on this. Paying attention to this is so important because buyers and some agents are wondering, well, why are you guys asking, as the lender, why are you asking about this issue, right? This is an old issue. Well, if there was no repair or remedy put in place already, we have to ensure the buyer is okay with all this and they are aware of the situation, okay? They have to be satisfied. So we can find things like old termite damage. We can find things like, yep, I had water in the basement before. And an appraiser, when they go out to these properties, they may be reading this and saying, all right, I'm going to take a look at this foundation a lot closer than I typically would because they've had water intrusion in the past, right? So it can tip them off for some of this stuff. So we want to try to get it addressed up front. So again, we'll see it. You should, as the buyer, look at it. because you may go in and get your inspections done already knowing, hey, I want some focus items put on the foundation. I want to focus on the roof. I want to focus on the plumbing issues they had in the past. And this might be one of those items that after your inspection comes back, you're going to put together a post-inspection addendum with your agent. You're going to ask the seller to fix certain items. This is another thing that some agents might ask us about, why we need a reinspection or why we may need a satisfaction of the post-inspection, right? So if you go back to the seller, you're the buyer, you got your agent, you go back to seller and say, hey, I don't know, the faucet under the kitchen sink was leaking. We want that repaired, all right? We're going to check with you and follow up with you, sellers, buyers, all agents, if that repair was completed, and is the buyer actually satisfied with the repair? Well, hopefully it's just a small leak under the sink. I would think you're going to be satisfied. But if it's a big one, right, missing shingles, some foundation issues, you name it, something large like that, we have to ensure that that consumer is satisfied. Because if he or she gets in that home after the fact and there's a problem, and we as a lender did not address it, it can come back on us, right? So we need to make sure that buyer is in a good position to go into that home, have no major repairs coming their way, and they don't have to choose between, do I fix my foundation and still live here, or do I pay my mortgage payment? That's a decision we don't want them to have, okay? So that's a big thing there. So after that post-inspection addendum, or it could be before, right? On your initial contract offering, this is another thing that we are looking at. It's just all related, right? The RPD is related, the post-inspection addendum's related, all this stuff's related. You may actually request certain inspections to be completed on the property. Termite inspection, foundation, whole house, radon, whatever, right? There's so many different types of inspections you can get nowadays, and I feel like they're just making more and more up right now. So you can go get those all done. Now, when you list that on the contract, we are also going to follow up with the buyer and the agents to ensure that it was, in fact, done, especially on the termite side, right? If you say you're going to get a termite inspection done, I need to see the results of said termite inspection to ensure there's no treatment requested or required per the inspector. Now, good news is, if you decided, hey, yeah, I put, the everything on there, whole house inspection, termite, radon, yada, 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 all of it was on the initial offering because I wanted the option to have it, but I just decided not to. Perfectly fine. That is perfectly fine. You're going to sign something that says, I, the buyer, decided I waived my right to the termite inspection or the radon inspection or whatever you put on the contract initially. Again, going back to us as the lender having to confirm with the buyer and the agents everything was done per the contract guide. Okay? So that's why we ask for certain things, and I just wanted to give you a heads up on it. That residential property disclosure form, guys, can be a lifesaver when you're walking into a property, what to look for, right? And any concerns that might be with the property that may turn you away from wanting to see it, all right? So it can save time and money and headache, all right? So take a look at it. Don't overlook that document. It's extremely important. We here as your lender, we're going to be reviewing it. The loan officer, processing staff, underwriting staff, appraiser, we're all looking at it. So if we ask for some weird stuff regarding something that you had no idea about, it could be from the residential property disclosure form. So don't overlook it, guys. I hope that information was helpful this week. Remember, subscribe on YouTube. Check us out on Apple Podcasts and Spotify, and we will see you all next week.